Yes. You are live. Woo! Welcome to WAIM. We are so excited to be here. We are here with author Eliana Gilad.
Yeah, Eliana Gilad.
Eliana
Uh-huh.
Gilad. Okay.
Right.
And she is a producer and author. And let me get down here to her amazing bio. She's a two-time TEDx presenter, motivational speaker, healing voice mentor, therapeutic singing trainer, composer, performer, and founder of Voices of Eden, Ancient Wisdom and Healing Music Institute. She's born in the United States and she left for France in 91 and then moved to Israel in 94. Professionally, she's dedicated her life to reviving the conscious use of voice and rhythm as natural healing instruments as they were used in ancient matriarchal times. This wordless healing sound modality helps people find their authentic voices and connect to their inner calm in the midst of change. It has been clinically researched in a neonatal intensive care unit where it has proven to lower blood pressure and heart rate, increase focus, and improve the quality of sleep. Her work has been featured in publications like Drummer, Yoga Journal, Mothering, Music and Medicine Journal, Global Rhythm, and Hindustan Times. Documentarian Emmanuel Ter also features Eliana in his award-winning film Femme in 2013, narrated by Sharon Stone. This is really long. I want you to talk to us about your book and about your life and how you got here. And I am just excited that you're here with us. And we've been trying to make this happen for a minute. And I'm just so grateful that you've taken the time to be with us.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for having me. What would you like to know? I love
Everything,
so
everything. Why did you write this book? Why was this book so important to you?
well, it's the fruit of 30 years work, and it's the evolution from the last book, which was Miriam's Secret. Um, and in light of COVID, and having lived and worked through 3 wars, unrest, social unrest, displacement in the Middle East for over 20 years, when we were all in lockdown, I thought, you know what? It's really important. It's really important to, let's say, over the last 30 years, at this point, I've lost count, with how many people I've trained. Well over 10,000 spiritual entrepreneurs. And so I thought, well, it's not just about my experience, but these 10,000 people as well, in order to support people to know that, the confidence that you seek, it's alive within you, but is hiding in this like really unique place, like your voice.
Mm-hmm.
That when you access that transformative power of your voice, you gain clarity and you can move forward. And we're living in such times of change that have never been, to this extent before.
Right.
And having been a broadcaster for CBS, this is 30 years ago, when I was a broadcaster, and what I experienced there, seeing how the stories that are sold in commercial broadcasting, it's generally fear, war, rape, pillage, and good news is a ceasefire. And during the Olympics, it was actually when I just prayed to use my voice for a higher purpose, and Voices of Eden, this therapeutic singing system, is the result, but is one step after the next. And this book is the repository of this ancient wisdom and way that has come about, and the stories of the ancient healers who used this, plus the everyday people who, over these years are now applying these very simple tools as well, and to support people to know that there are other alternatives than gloom and doom today.
But it's almost like people are comfortable with the gloom and doom.
That's
You
true.
know,
That's true. And I'm not going, I'm here, and you're here too. We're here not for those people. There's no right or wrong. We all have a choice. And it really, life is 10% what happens to us and 90% our attitude, how we respond to it. The choice is yours. And 99% of what we're reacting, and we're reacting to doom and gloom and triggers that, of our critical voices that get triggered. And, we're kind of like living robots, but it's not comfortable to change the sleepwalking.
Right.
And you pay one way or you pay the other. The choice is yours. I'd rather live serenely, and I live serenely, and I've done it and proven it to myself, even when bombs are dropping. And you don't have to have physical bombs dropping, but
no, right.
If I can live calmly when physical bombs are dropping, I know anybody can. And we all have bombs dropping today in our lives, one way or the other.
I think what's really interesting is that too often we don't trust ourselves. Right?
Yeah.
We don't trust.
Exactly.
We don't trust what's in us and what we do for ourselves and how we manage ourselves.
Could you say that again?
What we do to ourselves and how we manage ourselves. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I do.
Oh,
yeah. But
okay. You're trying to understand what I'm saying.
No, it's really important what you're saying. So I want to make sure to really hear it.
Because I think too often, when we don't always want to manage ourselves, and we don't know how to even deal with ourselves in times because we're trying to do so much for others, to present ourselves differently to others. It's what person are you presenting today at this moment? How are you presenting yourself based on the environment, based on your last experience, and where you are emotionally, mentally in this space? We don't always look at that, and because there's layers of how we meet people. I was talking to somebody not too long ago, and this was after COVID, and they wondered, Marcia, you normally are out and about and you're doing all these things, and I've been sequestered, and I'm okay with that. But I am okay with that. But you're accustomed to you're accustomed to
you can, but I can't, right?
Right?
Yeah.
Right?
Well, I couldn't say it better than you, it's like spot on. That's the whole point of why I get up in the morning, I'm one person amongst billions, right? And I can't change anybody else, but just like I said before, the 10% and the 90%, how you respond. And the thing is, so what are you going to do? So you have two choices. You can continue and you can look really good, to fit in. But when you dare to connect to the source of your voice inside, your emotions and your nerves calm down, and you get clarity, and you effortlessly know what to say or do next in any situation. And if you don't, if you choose like what you're speaking of, well, you could look great on the outside, say all the, right things, but stay feeling like, what on the inside. How's it working for you?
That's right. That's right. And it's not. And so then what happens is you start tearing at yourself because you start asking the questions to yourselves. Oh, well, why didn't I do this? Well, why didn't I? And you take this pressure that's not necessarily supposed to be given to you that you're supposed to receive.
Yeah.
Right? And so how do you navigate the world and so many different types of people with, and they're all bringing something to the table. They're bringing all of their little baggage with them to you. And how do you manage accepting the luggage, the baggage, or leaving it and leaving that whole conversation?
Or a third option is meet the present moment with curiosity, without the reaction. The trigger gets triggered. And 2 seconds ago already was, and 2 minutes from now isn't here yet. And the moment of power is here and now. And how are you playing your instrument? I see things in musical terms, and that we're each instruments, and our voice bridges our inner truth with our outer expression. But if we're just in regular mode, in reactionary mode, it's like that, cacophony. And it's just a bunch of noise, and it's exhausting. And you can't hear anything. You don't hear anything because it's just, human react, story. And that's the usual, until you get tired of being that tired and feeling like, what there, it's like your clarity and your calm is right inside of you right now. But you have to dare to stop long enough to connect with it and to tune with it. A musician doesn't just pick up the instrument and play. There's the tuning of it. And every musical instrument is a copy of our beautiful instruments out of a human body, out of a human person. And I believe that there are no two voices alike, and each voice is imperfectly perfect and perfectly imperfect and beautiful, and really deserves to be heard. And I would say at this point needs to be heard, not yesterday, not tomorrow. And, if you have a nudge inside of you that you're feeling like, okay, so now we're on this other end and nobody really knows. And I gotta, what am I doing with my life? Why am I here? What's going on? And you feel the urge, or, an inner nudge that, that you're ready to make a difference. And you feel drawn to that because it's like now or never. Mm-hmm. Right. And that's important. That's your real voice talking. And it is important. And we do need to hear it. And the world will be a better place for us to hear it. But if you don't allow yourself to learn to trust it and learn to listen to it and hear it and act upon it, well, then again, you're contributing to the silent masses, silent masses. You get to be a victim. You'll get to be right with the majority of the human race. And there's nothing wrong with that. But how's that working for us?
But sometimes you don't even know what you're dealing with, because people don't always bring their authentic self anyway. There are far too many of them that don't. And so you're getting this facade, and you have to slowly peel it back in order to get to that authenticity.
Exactly. Right. And how can I expect you to do that if I'm not willing to do that?
Right.
It begins with me, it begins with us and our willingness. And yeah, that's the scary part, because it's vulnerable. It's very, very vulnerable. And we human beings don't like feeling vulnerable. Certainly those of us in the Western world who, learn to control at all all costs.
Right.
It's like, our mythos is like having it all and control and following the plan and getting it done. It's like, that's the value of the person. But it inadvertently has developed in us such a lack of self-esteem because our self-worth is dependent upon how we're showing up and how we look. And I want to say to you, those of you who are listening, that your vulnerability is not a blight. It's not your weakness. It's actually your power. Just think about it. When you hear somebody who's showing up real, how would you rather? What would you be more attracted to? Someone who's
straight up, no chaser. I don't.
Exactly. Like perfect. Like perfect bull hooey.
Right.
Or somebody who has it all, fucks it all up, but they're daring to be real. It's like, which do you prefer? Which is more attractive to you?
It's really interesting. This was a couple of weeks ago. I was on the phone with a friend of mine, and she lives up in New Jersey, and we were just, kind of kicking it and laughing and talking. And she just said, I really miss talking to you. And I was like, oh, really? Why? And I said, you can pick up the phone, you can call, see. She said, there's nobody that is around me that just tells me the truth. Right. And I had to sit in that for a minute. Right. Because you think that you have these people around you that are going to be truthful, but are they really being honest about the conversation that they're having with you? And they're giving you portions of what they think you want to hear, opposed to what they need to hear. And so then it gets lost. You get lost. How do you bring it all back to be able to have real conversations and real understanding? That's, I guess, a challenge in many cases. And, I'm old. I'm not a kid anymore.
Right. Well, yeah, it's like, and how long? Yeah. Like, how much longer do you have? Well, it's like, it gets down to that, like, why are you alive? And, how are you spending your life? And, instead of, well, it's kind of like silencing the outer critic, just screaming silently inside. So you like politically correct, look good, or lie to your friends, like like your friend pointed out so clearly, and then you stop yourself dead in your tracks. But what if you were to silence your inner critic? That you were to shift the projection, and instead connect inside and stop giving your power away outside, silencing your own inner critic, and then become unstoppable, because it doesn't matter what anybody else has to say or do.
And too often there are those of us who do that and are often faced with the challenge, because people don't always want to hear the truth, and it's not comfortable. So you have to be able, depending on where you are and with whom you're having this conversation, how that's going to play out. And there are political things that are involved in that journey. There are political things that you have, little landmines that you have to watch, depending on where you are, and having to make those political steps. Right?
Yeah.
Even in familia relationships, you still have to play the little game sometimes to make certain that you're doing and saying the right things, to make certain that we're all on one accord.
Yeah.
Right.
You're reminding me of a conversation, or not in our Healing Voices community. It's a Facebook community of spiritual entrepreneurs, and there was a woman in there saying, Yeah, well, I've been holding myself back because I'm so afraid to say the wrong thing. And but I know I need to speak up for what is important to me. But I'm afraid to do that. And so one of our therapeutic singing certificates was, in this, and she shared something similar, and that how she dared with her own clients. She just showed up. She was really scared because she could lose her clients, and she dared do this. And first of all, she dared make a Facebook Live, which she was not used to doing, like really terrified. And she just, using these tools, which are very simple, she decided, well, but what am I doing here? It's like, if I keep holding back, well, then why have I lived up until this point? It's a woman, the therapeutic singing certificate. She's in her mid-50s, and she's Australian, and she was fired from her. She's a hairdresser, and she was fired from her job. She was not politically correct, and that she was just being real. And it served to shut her down for a while. And then the result of this was she decided she'd been through too much. Her husband had died. She went
a lot.
Her husband died. She was fired, and then then there was this conversation, and she decided she's just pulling out all the stops because she didn't have any. She figured she'd have so much to lose, except the anxiety and the stress, and like she felt like she was going to die. And what ended up happening was she didn't point out to other people. She kept the focus on herself, and she showed up vulnerably. She wanted to die. It was not comfortable for her. Not at all. But the result was that all of these people she didn't even know responded to her. And the result is that she opened up a salon in the backyard of her, where she lives. And she's like thriving. And then she's using the therapeutic singing. Like, people are coming to her, not just, they come for the haircut, and then they have, a haircutter's kind of like a therapist, people like tell them all their stories.
Right.
She has like this entire lease on life. And now she's helping others. Others are coming to her. Isn't that amazing?
It is amazing. But it's necessary.
Yeah, and the thing is that the other woman in the community, in our Healing Voices, she was kind of like a prod to her, because she kept bringing up the fear and why you can't, why it won't work, why it won't, and God bless this woman who, like, she took that, it was triggering to her, but she used it to prod herself forward. And look what happened, and look what's happening now. So don't be afraid of the conflict. But you
gotta hold that point right there. Hold that point right there. The conflict could also disseminate everything that you have been building and working on. Now, the trust and the faith in the higher power, in the Lord, in God, that he's going to save you, or you're going to put yourself out there, and everything that you've done for the last 10, 15 years can be totally disseminated in a matter of seconds. How do you manage all of that, keeping that in mind, not being afraid, because there's fear.
Oh, there is fear.
Yeah, I mean, big time.
To say there's not fear. And anybody who says there isn't is just, doing the Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, facade, perfection facade, No,
It's real.
yeah, it's a thing, and it's a great question. What do you do? Well, I mean, I'll answer with another question. How strong is your faith? How strong is the conviction of your heart? Well, I'll answer. It's bringing up a story of, so I've lived through 3 wars. All right. And I lived in the Middle East for 20 plus years. And I lived and worked with Jews, Christians, Muslim, Druze, Israeli, Palestinian, non-issue. But you don't hear that on the news. But that's why I'm here. That's why I'm showing up to use media for constructive purposes. So, in the 2006 war in northern Israel and Hezbollah, who were in Lebanon at the time. So, hold on, what was all right. So when the bombs dropped, so we were being bombed, and the radar catches the bomb 90 seconds before it blasts, before it lands. All right. So there's this siren that goes off, and you got 90 seconds to get into the bomb shelter. Woo. Or, in a safe place in your house. And so one day, like in my house, I lived in an older house, and the safe place was in this like 2-foot long hallway between the living room and the bathroom. And I'm sitting there, and, the siren's going off, and I'm, waiting for the blast. And I go like, how come we just can't live in peace? Why do they have to drop bombs? Why can't we just live in peace? Why can't we all just get along? And a voice inside me answers, well, sweetheart, why do you expect everybody else to behave so you can be peaceful? How well are you living in peace when bombs are dropping? And it's like, whoa,
right.
How well can you live
in peace
peacefully in war? That's the issue. If I wait for the rest of the world to change, when's that going to happen? But how peacefully, when the bombs are dropping, whether it's a physical bomb or whether it's a bomb of my triggers inside, or political correctness, or the fear of attack from someone, it's all there. It's the same thing, of different proportions. And that's the work.
And it echoes throughout every fiber of your being.
Right. And that reverberation is so much more important than what comes out of your mouth. It's because have you ever been on, it's like what comes out of your mouth is the after effect of how you've played your instrument.
Yep.
Like, have you ever been on, I don't know, one of these calls with some bureaucratic administrative something, the telephone company, or that, you have to get something done and you wait forever. And the person finally answers, and you can tell you don't know this person, you've never seen them before, you'll never see them again. And you can tell by their voice if they're present, if there's somebody sitting next to them, if they're pissed, if they're,
Right. You do.
And you're not even seeing them. Mm-hmm. You can tell they're reading the script, in the call center, and they just got the job.
Right? They're on page number 4. Right.
Thank you. We really care for your, and he's really going, Jesus Christ, why am I in this job? It's like, if only this isn't going to pay the rent anyway. I mean, you can tell that.
You really can. You really can. And you really want to say, and you're sitting there like, are you okay? Are you there? Is everything okay?
Is there a human being there? Is there a human being there? So,
excuse me.
case in point, it's not the right words because they're saying all the right words.
Mm-hmm.
It's where you're connected to. And each one of us has that impact, but we don't see ourselves from the outside. We're sitting there reacting to our critical voices inside and staying prisoner to that and enslaved by that, not by political correctness.
I think sometimes that we get so caught up in trying to manage that external madness that we forget that we don't really have to manage it.
Yeah.
We really don't. We really can just walk away. We really can just hang up and get a different call center. We really can do that without creating something left in my DNA, that a footprint that you've left that I've now got to figure out how to exterminate it from my being. And that is worse to me than just having a straight up no chaser argument, right? I'd rather be in your face and having a one-on-one than to have to play these little games and knowing that there is something else that's inside that person that's taking them to another level. Maybe what happened in the morning before they got to work. Maybe what their manager said 2 hours ago. Maybe what the last caller did and hung up. Maybe it's one of those things at the stoplight. But you carry that energy, that madness with you, and it just escapes like steam. It just moves out into the atmosphere and it just touches everything in its wake.
Oh, that's you're reminding me of the prophetess Miriam. You know, it was like archetype of feminine leadership.
Mm-hmm.
And in Emerge, Triumph, and Thrive Through Uncertainty, there's a story there of, and you know, and you don't need to, most people don't even know who prophetess Miriam is, but it's through her leadership that Moses was born. He's his older sister. And you know, when the Hebrews were, you know, they were slaves in Egypt, and then, you know, and they, you know, the Red Sea's part, you know, the old, you know, the Bible story, and then they're 40 years in the desert on the way to the promised land. Well, that's 40 years. That's, you know, that's a few generations. We're just like 2 years into this. And her way of showing up, her leadership was, it says that she had a well, and that the well was not just of water, but of wisdom and soothing nature. And she was, there's one story of, you know, where she dares to speak up, and she gets punished and sent to the leper colony. You know, like ousted, you know, like our worst fear, right? Of being, you know, being ostracized, which is why we don't speak up, right? Because of political correctness. Yet you see the power of that leadership, because in the story it says, you know, that Moses and Aaron, the other brother, then they plead, God, no, we didn't mean it. No, let her go. And the people would not leave camp without her.
Yes.
They waited until she came out. That's the power of how we show up, you know, with the feminine energy.
So I have a question. I wrote a question. This is going to respond to this. What does one's personal transformation have to do with one's past, present, and future? And so as she's going and she's growing and she's making all these changes, she's taking a leadership role. But how do we take that personal experience and divide it up? And how does it show up?
By how we show up. I think that's what's so inspiring to me and empowering to me about her leadership. It's that as a prophetess, she would have seen the changes coming. It's not that she became a leader. She led the whole way. That feminine power doesn't need to assert itself. That's masculine power. And I'm not talking about man or woman, because we each have both, but that masculine is, our assertion. That's, we live today, for the last few thousand years, we've been living according to a masculine worldview, intellect and cognitive. And I believe that has been really, really important to humanity so that we could evolve and create our technologies, and all of these technological things that are masculine, that we need the masculine.
Supposed to be, yes.
So we had to cut off from feminine worldview, but now we've come full circle with that. And now, and so she would have seen, and not just her, but, it was tens and thousands of years. Most of human history, we've lived, the cycles, Mother Nature, and we still do today, but we forget about it because we're so, we live from here, here up. And so the shift, what I see, and the more that I contemplate on this, and listeners, I was telling to our little pre-conversation before we got on the air, that I just the book, it's not a cognitive book, like mine is earmarked, and there are some exercises, and it's this is so appropriate. Look at this. How can feminine wisdom help us in today's world? Which is basically what you're saying, right?
Right.
All right. So it says the changes that we experience today are of similar magnitude to those experienced during the times of the Hebrews leaving Egypt, crossing the Red Sea and wandering through the desert for 40 years on their way toward the promised land. Mm-hmm. By taking time to consider their journey, we can gain wisdom to practice in our own journeys to our own personal promised lands. Well, what is wisdom, really? Wisdom, and this is her power, I see. Wisdom is not something you learn in a book. Wisdom is something that is gained by years of experience. And each one of us, here's the answer to your question.
Okay.
Each one of us has a unique road to travel in this life. And each person's life brings with it a unique set of lessons. And wisdom is the payoff for all of our lessons learned. And in the ancient scripts, there's a beautiful saying, keep company with the wise and you will become wise. So when you learn your lessons through life, it's empowering. Your self-worth increases. You treat yourself differently, and you end up behaving kindlier towards yourself and others. And then others respond to you differently as well. In ancient times, the elders were highly respected and looked up to. They had lived long enough to learn lessons in life, and the wise women were consulted for all kinds of matters. So as you evolve as a human being, your wisdom widens, and the more that you allow yourself to experience, the more you learn. And then the more you learn, the more you evolve as a human being. And then the more you evolve, the wiser you become. And the wiser you become, the lighter your experience of life. And the lighter your experience of life, the more joy can come in.
Mm-hmm. And joy is important.
Oh boy, it's everything.
Why is this flickering? So one of the other questions that I have is that when, as part of this, is that, but how do you get this inner strength, and how do you know you have it, and what is its real purpose?
Well, the purpose is connecting us to who we truly are, that joy within, that our being. And how we get there is, what what I just read, by one step at a time, by daring to go within, by appreciating our lessons in life and learning them instead of avoiding them, because they offer us such wisdom. They offer, and that wisdom empowers. What was that line? It empowers.
Right.
It empowers. Now it kind of goes back to what we were talking about before. Now I can't find it.
So are you still reading the book?
No, no.
Because the book is still up in your face right now on the screen.
Oh, so there's maybe the screen. Oh, it's weird. There's something. Yeah. So hold on. Yeah. Now my screen, I'm on. Yeah. Now I have the computer screen, but the Zoom screen went off. Are you still there?
I'm still here.
How weird. I can't get back to the screen. I'm just seeing my lock, that lock screen. I don't know what happened.
Lock screen. Do you want to go out and come back in? Go back in?
I don't even know. All right. Yeah. If you can take me out, because I can't even get to the place that would let me come back in.
Oh, okay. So let me see.
Something is locked on my computer.
Yes. Hold on once. Let me see what happens if I do this. Let me see.
Or I could.
Wait, hold on.
Uh-huh. Let me try something. Here, guys, perfect example of thriving through uncertainty.
Yes, you just keep it moving, girl. We just keep it moving. That's what we're going to do. Hold on a second. Let's see here. I'm going to remove you from the screen, and then I'm going to add you back and see what happens.
Okay. All right. We could have a little healing musical interlude.
Okay, but it's not, you're not coming back.
I know what I'm going to do. I'll call in from my telephone.
Okay, that sounds good to me, girl. We'll do that. Go ahead.
Calling from my telephone.
Keep singing. Just keep singing. Girl, you are hilarious. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Eliana Gilad. She's singing now. Keep it moving. So turn that other one off.
Okay.
Just mute it. Just see the little mute thing up in the top.
couldn't even close the computer. You know how sometimes that was, oh, I can still hear myself in the other room, but at least it's far enough away. I don't know, it's having a life of its own right now. I'm seeing myself twice here. It's funny, and I'm hearing myself on the other computer. I shut the computer down, but it won't shut down. I don't know, there's something.
Well, you know what? I've turned off the mic, so I don't know why you can still hear it.
I know, so did I. I have no idea. Because it's serving some wonderful purpose right now.
I don't know.
It reminds me of this other story. So you said about the 90 seconds to get to the safe room?
Yeah.
All right. So one day, like you're in lockdown and you can't be in public, but you got to go to the market, right? So the supermarkets are open, and it's like there's not bombing 24/7. It's not like the movies, you know, where you're not on the battlefield. I mean, bombs are dropping, but if you're not literally at the battlefield, it's right. Even if you're on the battlefield, it's not 24/7. All right, so I drive down the hill. I like live in this bucolic health village overlooking the Sea of Galilee, and I drive down into the city and to go to the market. And in Galilee, it's Israeli and Palestinians together, Jew, Christian, Muslim, the whole gamut. All right, so get down and I hear the siren start. I'm going, oh my God, where do I go? Where's the safe room? And then I remember that a safe place is if you can get to an underground parking, you know, because it's concrete, that's, and I go, oh, I could get to the market. I'll go to the underground parking in the market. And I like get there, like, whoa, I got to the underground parking, you know, and no bomb dropped, like 90 seconds. And so I get my cart and I like go up into the market, and I hadn't seen people, you know, in like a while, you know, like, oh, you know, and you see the women, you know, dressed in their different, you know, garb, and I'm doing, you know, I'm like quickly getting my stuff, and then you know, the building like started like, and the guy on the speaker goes, everybody get into the cooler room, into the refrigerated room. You know, like that's the safe place. It's like, I am not going into the refrigerator section. It's like, no friggin' way. I mean, it's the middle of summer, so it could have been good because it was so hot, but I didn't want to, what am I going to like freeze to death? And then I remembered that the other safe place is in a stairwell. And as I'm like going, you know, towards the refrigerated section, I see the stairwell and I open the door, and there are 3 other women there. So it's me.
Wonderful.
This Palestinian woman, you know, dressed in like her garb, in a religious Jewish woman, and a Christian woman, and a Russian one. What do? You know, or like, you don't know what's happening. It's like, what would you do in that situation?
Right. I would just ask, I think it would just be us getting to know one another.
And the building is like,
right.
And then
pray.
Nothing in common with, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's like,
but you do have something in common. You are all in that little room.
Exactly. So I keep the focus on myself, and I start doing one of the, like a humming to one of the soothing anxiety and the therapeutic singing thing, and sitting there doing this. And after a few minutes, it's like, can we go out? Like, what do you do? And we're all kind of nervously looking at one another. And so I say, you know, I am doing this thing. It's this way to soothe anxiety no matter what's going on. And I mean, if you're interested, I could show you, because this is helping me. And they go, okay. And so I show them, and the 4 of us are in this stairwell in the middle of, I mean, I wish I had a camera. It's like the best story to be able to tell now, but it was like, there we are, kind of like humming.
Right.
And it was this like transcendent moment in the midst of this horrendous
madness.
Yeah, so it kind of reminded me, we were just talking about that story. It reminded me of the computer window.
So when you talk about that internal experience, that self-examination, how do you deal with that? What does it reveal to you when you do self-examinations, or do you?
Well, I listen inside. And then when I do that, I always get my answers. I mean, you can get your answers 24/7. You know, you don't even need a Wi-Fi hookup. It doesn't cost you a penny. It doesn't cost you money, but it costs you being willing to give up your anxiety, and it's like, that is, I don't know, I can't imagine not doing that, because the other is just victimizing myself.
Mm-hmm.
And, I know that I have a choice, and it's just so much more uncomfortable to avoid the discomfort than it is. It's like it transforms the difficulties into like fertilizer for expansion, for good, and it always leads to good. And that, and over the years, it's just one moment at a time.
Mm-hmm.
Not like you go solve it and there you have it, it's done.
Right.
But I don't have big dramas anymore, and I don't get stopped by what's going on today. Because I know it's like I could never have lived through those wars, or in the Middle East for 20 plus years if I paid attention to that. And I feel so grateful for that experience, because it is helping me so much now. And I just feel so useful. My life has such meaning and purpose. And it's like the best, being able to support other leaders, to show up, in their power, because it's not about any one person now, and no one has the answer. And the answers are inside anyway, they're not outside.
They're right. What are 3 takeaways from that experience, just all of the experience of being in Israel? 3 takeaways that will be with you in how they may have changed you.
That it really changed my sense of my perception of time. Well, 3 things. Maybe even before the time is that, so in the West, and in North America and Western Europe, we're inculcated to make that a plan is something that you make to follow through on, that you follow steps to get to a result. And in the Middle East, in Israel, we're educated that a plan is a jumping off point. Because no one in their right mind expects that plan is going to be followed through on, because life is just so dynamic. You can't count on that. It's a jumping off point. And learning to live in that way has been so instrumental in my life, because it allows for creativity. It gives value to improvisation, and for being in the present moment, of evaluating each moment. Okay, so where are we vis-a-vis what we thought, then what is now? And it's such a practical skill to have. That has and continues to. That really helps me thrive through uncertainty and emerge triumphant. Number 2 is related, and that's the thing of time. Because in the West, and someone the other day say how she's Mexican, and how in coming to the US, how it's such a challenge for her, the notion of time, because in America there's such a value on getting things done and things, and structuring the time. And in Mexico, it's a very different system of time. And in the Middle East, it's interesting because I spent time in Mexico last year and I was quite comfortable. It's like, oh, right, mañana. It's kind of like the Middle East. It's like, I got it.
Right,
And so,
right.
and so I rather, like, not everything has to be. At the beginning, it would like drive me nuts. It's like, if something is called, I don't know, like a wedding. All right. Well, I mean, that's a social form, but a wedding, let's say, the wedding is called for, I don't know, 7. No one in their right mind thinks it's going to start at 7. It means
7.
No, it means the people that work there or something, they're coming at 7. The doors will be open, and it's for the foreigners who, it's for the Americans, the ones who, but you come, and when you come early, there's food there, and it's that you're meeting, it's hospitality, it's fellowship, you're meeting with friends and with family, and people eat, and the event starts, like whoever's officiating, if it's Jewish, if it's the rabbi or the priest or the imam, they come like an hour later, an hour and a half later. It's like, no one in the right mind expects that when you say the hour, it's the hour. It's like a reference point. And when you get used to it, it's life in the flow. It's feminine. It's more about when you feel the time is right. It's not a cognitive, it's a visceral approach to time. And time is a human construct. And maybe that's the third thing, is feminine approach. In the Middle East, there's it's group oriented, not individual oriented. Right. And so the connection is real, and it doesn't matter Jew, Christian, Muslim, Israeli, Palestinian. That's the Middle East, and it's the Mediterranean. And
yes,
I just really appreciate that. It makes me feel safe. Ironically so. But you know what it is? It's that because while things may be in your face, there's nothing behind it. It's the extreme opposite of what you were talking about so poignantly at the beginning, of how, your friends, they'll say what you want to hear, but it's a lie.
Right.
There's not a value in that. It's like, if you're doing that, what are you hiding? You're just...
You know what I found, and I've been to Israel and Egypt, and in both of those places, there was a peace that I had. My spirit was at peace in both locations. Yes. And the people were honest. They just straightforward. I didn't walk away with a question of mystery and is this person going to do me ill? There was no ill will.
Right.
Right. And
it
was giving, more giving.
Yes, it's sincere. It's sincerity there. You don't have a question where you stand. Like, people will tell you to your face, if they don't like something or they disagree. And, for an American, it's like, oh boy, at the beginning, oh my God, that was so hard for me. But I'm quite clear that part of the reason I lived in the Middle East for 20 plus years was to heal that extreme political and politeness and correctness that I grew up with here in the US, that is extremely dysfunctional and destructive. But you don't know when you're sitting when you're sitting in the middle of the aquarium, and every place has its positive and negative aspect. Right. take what you like and leave the rest. That's what I love, living around the globe and having lived on 3 continents in 4 different languages. It's like you really learn you see yourself, you're like staring at yourself in the mirror, like really, really close. But the great thing about that is when you meet up with these different mindsets and different worldviews, you can take what you like and leave the rest, and you're much richer for it. And life is so much more interesting and fun, and with all of the twists and turns and uncertainties that it brings. And it really has served me because I have confidence today and faith and, enjoying my life one day at a time. And, I'm so useful and so appreciative of, every person who dares to show up, ever so imperfectly. And it's really important.
It is important. And it's important that we see people as people, and
Yeah.
to give people the opportunity to get to know us and to get to understand our culture, and we don't always do that, but it's critical in order for us to be comfortable in our skin and in our space.
Yeah. Yeah.
Eliana, Gilad, thank you so much for joining us. And we will hope to get back with you again with your next book.
Right. With pleasure. With pleasure. Thanks so much for having me.
All right. Thank you. And thank you for your patience. Have a good one.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Oh, that was really interesting. And she spent a lot of times over there doing a lot of work. And it's just really wonderful. I'm glad we had an opportunity to chat with her. And we will be, our next guest is going to be Mr. Lou Zacharilla. And I don't know, he's trying to get his, I don't know what's happening with Lou, but let me at least tell you about Lou. So while we're waiting for him, Lou is the co-founder of the Intelligent Community Foundation. And this organization is so amazing. They are talking about connectivity in the internet to all of these spaces, all these countries, all over the world. And he will be with us live from the Intelligent Community Forum's Global Summit in Dublin, Ohio. And after a career in advertising, where his work included the award-winning Be All You Can Be campaign for the Army and corporate sponsorship development for the 1984 Winter Olympics, Lou began consulting in '83 and with B2B companies in telecommunications, real estate, and industrial applications on PR, brand, and business development. He is a frequent speaker and moderator at conferences, including the annual Satellite and NAB conventions, the annual Pacific Telecom Council Conference, the ISP Con, Broadband Buildings and Commerce, Power Building, and the Ontario Investment Services Luncheon. He also writes frequently on business development, teleports, information systems, and commercial real estate for publications including Municipal World, Continental, and Flight magazine. He's an adjunct professor at Fordham University in New York, where he teaches a course on marketing and the media each year. He holds a master's degree from the University of Notre Dame in South Bend, Indiana. That's my hometown, everybody. So I don't know where Lou is, but I'm telling you, you might want to go to their website. And it's the intelligentcommunityforum.com. And they are really traveling the world. They've set up an infrastructure where all of these major countries in around the world, what they're doing with their own people in giving them information on and who's doing that. Didn't even make sense, Marcia. Who's actually giving and deploying technology and internet connections to their citizens. And if they're doing this in an innovative way, and how they're able to make certain that all their children, all their seniors, all their young people are able to get online and function. And he was going to talk to us more about this, but I don't know where he is. He's in Dublin, Dublin, Ohio, trying to get his mic straight. So, there's a problem with the mic and the camera, and I don't know, it might be that he's in a building somewhere that is not going to provide him the opportunity to come. So let's see what we can do in the meantime. He's still trying. Before you add them, and I don't have his number, Lou. I don't have his number. I do have his number. Let's see. Nope, he's not answering. So he's probably working on that. Hi, I don't know what to do. It says that you need a camera and a mic. Are you on your phone? Okay, so yeah. Uh-huh. Uh-huh. What number am I calling now? That's the number I'm talking to you on. Okay, so I should call you opposed to you calling me on this one? You want to just do it as audio? Okay, that's fine. Hold on. I got my phone. Hang on. Speaker. And let me unplug. Let's see. Can you say something?
Yep. Hello, this is Lou Zacharilla.
Okay. Can you hear me from can you hear me?
I can hear you fine.
Okay. So what we're going to do is, listen, we're going to make this work.
I know we will.
All right. Let's see if I can turn it up a little bit more and put this someplace close by. Bear with me. All right. So say something so I can.
This is Lou. I'm still in Dublin, Ohio. I just got here.
Okay.
And looking forward to talking to you and giving you my report.
Okay. So why don't you give us a heads up? What's happening now?
Well, we just arrived in Dublin, Ohio, which, if you haven't been here, is sort of an example of the new urbanism at work. There is a downtown. There is this whole vibe now of a city that really does work for people, and it's just wonderful. And what's happening tonight is delegations are coming in from all over the world. I just ran into the Vietnamese in the lobby. They just got in from a long flight. The Taiwanese are here. the Australians, Brazilians, Canadians, and of course, people from the great state of Ohio and the Midwest are here. And we're getting ready tomorrow to talk about the future of connectivity and the future of the small city and what it means.
Oh, that's wonderful. So now, what is the conference? You're going to be there for how many days?
We're going to be here for 2 days, and there are a couple of things that are going to happen, Marcia. One is we're going to be talking about why these cities work, the method, right? So we'll be talking about the things that we do and we teach that have made 200 cities, at least go on the path towards success. But more importantly, they're going to be sharing notes with each other, right? All the people from those cities are going to be talking to each other about what works and what doesn't, and how they've built great inclusive places. The second thing is there's going to be a lot of networking done. These cities now are sort of in many ways bypassing their national governments because, let's face it, national governments are becoming increasingly, dysfunctional or argumentative or whatever it is. But the cities now are doing economic trade with each other. They're talking to each other about innovations and how they can combine resources from their universities, their private sector, their local governments, and build these, cities internationally, sort of below the level of the national governments, which I think is very exciting because there are very few shackles to doing this.
But now, what type of leadership do they have in place to do this? Have they worked with other organizations, or this is a new concept? Or
it's really people who are, I would say, enlightened in a way. It's sort of like a second enlightenment to cities. They're just not afraid of ideas. They're not afraid to look a problem in the face and say, this is a problem, as opposed to trying to deflect it or something. And they're embracing ideas, and they're understanding that connectivity is really the base where this all needs to work, that people need access, right? And that the technology that's being put in place in cities is being put in place so that human beings can live great lives, right? The Taiwanese city, New Taipei cities here, they have a great philosophy, and they say we're going to use our technology to build trust, but more importantly, to take the daily burdens off the lives of our people, because they understand life can be burdensome. Life is difficult, and the government doesn't need to make it more difficult. The government has the technology that can enable people, to spend less time with government, and that could make everybody happy. In a certain way. We're going to pick the garbage up on time. We're going to show you when the buses are coming. We're going to provide you with the kinds of services that are going to allow you to live a better life. We're going to give you good educational systems. So they're all doing this. And it's really remarkable because these are cities that most people in the world never heard of. And yet here they are putting their egos aside and just working for the people. So, there's an old saying that says a champion is put on the shoulders of the people, but a hero puts the people on his or her shoulders,
and comfortably. What's really interesting, though, I think, is that there's so many examples where citizens are actually in cities where their leadership is about the empowerment of their people. And so when we look at, and we've had this conversation before, and I know you get tired of hearing me saying it, but I don't know why the internet is so difficult and why it just can't be a global requirement, that it's just understood for work, for education. It's natural. It should just be like turning on your electricity, but not at the same price. Your whole life is being moved through these little wires underground. How do we change that we create this infrastructure globally? You're traveling all over the world, Lou, looking at these people. What are 3 cities that you think have really set the standard in the world, literally?
Well, I will tell you one thing, Marcia. There are two ways to do this that are being done. One is through legislative fiat. Okay, so in Finland, for example, Oulu, Finland is one really good example. But what happened there was that a woman named Suvi Linden, a very famous woman, she was both the Minister of Communications and the Minister of Culture at different times in her career. She got to the point where she pushed through the legislature there a declaration that internet access is a human right. And that does two things. That did two things. One, it allowed people to understand the importance of the internet as you just described it, or connectivity as you just described it. Secondly, it did force communities that now to think about how they were going to comply with this. And so what you get is this act of imagination. So communities begin to do the second thing, which is to begin to lower the costs of connectivity, because now everyone needs to get it. So in Australia, we'll go to Australia. Prospect Australia is here. What they've done over the years is to create an infrastructure where multiple companies, internet service providers, telecommunications companies, the National Broadband Network, all provide these services, all provide connectivity services, and they compete with each other. So they drive down prices, innovation goes up, and in the process, everyone gets connected. The third city, I guess, would be right here, Dublin, Ohio. And I really would encourage people to come here to see this amazing place. What they decided to do is to bypass state law and bypass the powerful telecommunications companies many years ago, and very cleverly start to build their own municipal network.
Oh.
And to then connect it to something called Ornet in the rest of Ohio. And so what they did is they built their own railroad effectively. And then they went out as a high-speed railroad. They connected their businesses, their hospitals, their schools. And then they went out and began to connect it to all of the other fiber networks, the research networks, the supercomputer networks, other cities' networks, so that they became the hub of the new railroad. And it was a very, very clever strategy. But what it did was to attract businesses, keep businesses home, help the school system become a great school system, and move that little city forward. And so they demonstrated that if you give people connectivity, if you give them access, educational outcomes improve, people stay home. And this place that I'm sitting in right now produces more Fortune 1000 companies on a per capita basis than any other city in the United States.
What?
And yes, and the United States is a very rich country, right? We got a lot of Fortune 1000 companies here. So it's those are three, I think, of some of my favorite examples.
And I think it's really huge, because when we sit and look at what's going on here in Baltimore and across the rest of most of this country, we're having these problems, and these young people are being impacted by it. And so if we want to be competitive globally, then if we can't even get on the internet to have a conversation, then what good is the government that we have?
Well, I assume that's a rhetorical question. As I said at the outset, national governments have become money transfer pumps. They become homes of in many parts of the world. And so human beings are beginning to do exactly what you would expect human beings to do. They're looking at their own. They're looking at their hometowns, their home cities, their city councils, their mayors, their leaders at the universities and other places. And they're saying, well, you know what? Let's take control of our own destiny. Let's figure out a way to do this ourselves, to finance it ourselves, and to get it done at this level, because we're just not going to get the kind of help that we need. I think there's another issue too in our country, which is the internet, can also be an open sewer, right? It can also be a very vulnerable place to be hacked. So the other thing we need to do is to, again, re-educate people so that they understand digital hygiene. They understand the power of the internet to educate. We have to do what they do in Taiwan, which is now to retrain educators on how to teach using the internet. Right?
Oh, I hadn't even thought about that. That's real.
That's happening.
Right.
It's happening in one of the 7 cities who will be here for our awards program Thursday night.
Wow. So I'll be able to see it, won't I?
Yes, you will.
I'm excited.
And, I will offer this to your viewers. If they want to see it as well, you can send them a comp to stream the Intelligent Community Forums event on Thursday, including the awards dinner at the Columbus State House, where 7 cities from around the world, the kind we're talking about, will now compete to be named number 1, and we'll name number 1 on Thursday evening. So it's kind of very exciting.
Oh,
it
Oscars,
is. You know,
it is. We can talk about this offline and get all the particulars, but that's very gracious of you. Thank you very much. I'm going to get in touch with the folks down in headquarters downtown, because I think that too often we don't know what we don't know.
That's right.
We don't know what we don't know. And we have to create an environment that gives people that information. So, yeah, whatever I can do with that would be wonderful. And I'm going to certainly participate. That's for sure.
Well, we love having you there.
I
You're part of the
know.
family.
I know. I'm going to move to New York. Y'all not going to get rid of me anytime soon. All right, Lou, I know that you've taken time out. Go ahead and get yourself together and enjoy your evening, and we can talk later and catch up about how we move forward with what you were recommending for our listeners, our viewers.
Well, thanks, Marcia, and thanks for having me. Sorry about the tech snafu. You know, technology's not perfect.
We know that, and we just keep it moving, right? WKIM, we keep it moving, right?
Exactly.
All right, babe.
Human beings are beautiful, and so that's what we're trying to do, make them better in cities. So
that's exactly right. Thank you, and enjoy yourself. Hi to everybody.
Good night.
Good night. Oh, that was really great. I'm so happy that he had an opportunity to come on, and he had some other people that he was going to bring. But, you know, like we said, technology is just that. And we have another guest coming, but he's not going to be here for another couple of minutes. So we're going to take a brief break. And I think what we're going to do is play some music, and we'll be right back. Okay, just a minute. Oh dear. Okay. Hello.
Hello. Hi,
How
Martha.
are you?
I'm doing fine.
Forgive me, we had a little thing I had to deal with here. I'd like to introduce you, though. We have with us the illustrious attorney Larry Gibson, who grew up in Baltimore and attended Howard University. He was the student government president and chairman of the DC Students of Civil Rights in 1967. He earned his law degree from Columbia University in New York. In 72, he began teaching law. 2 years later, he transferred to the University of Maryland School of Law, where he is the Morton and Sophia Mock Professor of Law and teaches election law and seminars about race and the law. He's also taught as a visiting law professor at the University of Mississippi, Aberdeen, Scotland, and North Carolina Central University. He holds an honorary doctorate degree from Morgan State University, and he is of counsel with the law firm of Shapiro, Scheer, Gwinnett, and Sandler. He has visited more than 70 countries in the world, and he's researched and designed several exhibits, articles, newspaper series, and other presentations on the history of civil rights and African American lawyers. He was the principal advocate for the law passed by the Maryland General Assembly that renamed the BWI airport Thurgood Marshall Airport. His book, Young Thurgood, The Making of a Supreme Court Justice, that describes the environment, people, and events that shaped Thurgood Marshall's attitudes, work habits, and priorities in his formative years. He's won a 2013 International Book Award for the biography, and he served as the Board of Trustees of the Maryland Historical Trust, Baltimore City's Commission for Historical and Architectural Preservation, and the Baltimore City Board of School Commissioners. During the administration of President Jimmy Carter, Professor Gibson served in the Department of Justice as Associate Deputy Attorney General and as the Director of the National Economic Crimes Project. He was Vice Chair of the National Security Council's Working Group on Terrorism. He is a member of the Kappa Alpha Psi fraternity, an Archon of Sigma Phi Pi, and a Sovereign Grand Inspector General 33 degree of the Prince Hall Masons. Thank you, sir, for your service.
Hi, Marcia. How are you doing?
oh yeah, and he's my dear friend. How you doing?
I'm doing fine.
I'm so glad you're here. I don't know what to do. I've been reading. So, ladies and gentlemen, wait a minute, I'm all tangled up here. You know, this is trying to act like I'm 20. Anyway, I have Professor Gibson is on here today to talk about 140,000 to ballot question K that came from the Sinclair leader. Now, Sinclair owns the Fox network, and now they've raised almost $500,000 so that they can try to take it off the ballot. Why is it so important? Why are we going through all this foolishness?
Well, it's not accurate that they raised 525. According to the reports, all of this money came from one person, the chairman of Sinclair Broadcast Company. As I think about question K, I am reminded of a song that Ray Charles used to sing. It was called Hard-Hearted Hannah. It was a song about a really evil woman who, among other things, liked to find a situation where people were having difficulty and just make things worse. And there is one particular line in that song that I think is applicable to question K. The line goes, I saw her on the seashore with a great big pan, and there was Hannah throwing water on a drowning man. Now, that's question K. Now, let me explain what I mean by that. For a decade now, Baltimore has suffered from having too much turnover among its elected and administrative officials.
Mm-hmm.
In the last 10 years,
Hmm.
we've had 4 mayors, 5 police commissioners, 3 public works directors, and really too many other short-term administrators. The controller and half of the city council, that's 7 out of the 14 city council members, have been in office less than 2 years. Now, this instability has really had a negative impact, and it's showing in the product of city government. It kind of has weakened the city government. It's produced inconsistency in managements, and there's simply been too much stopping and restarting and U-turns and not enough steady and experienced leadership. And here comes along question K, which threatens to make things worse, to add to the instability, to throw in water drowned in there.
But what is question K? What does this law state? And you're an attorney, you know what legally what it says. What does it really mean? And why is Sinclair spending this much money on this one piece?
Well, I can answer the first question, and that's the second question is a big question mark to me. What the provision provides is that under the question K passed, the entire city government, all of the elected officials, would be under a term limit regime under which the entire government could be required to go out of office at exactly the same time.
What?
Now, yes. Now, term limits for chief executives, although of debatable value, that's not new. But the combination of executive and legislative term limits, as we have in question K, would just be totally destructive and unproductive. I mean, it would just simply deprive a city government of valuable leadership and institutional knowledge. But then there is the throwing the last pan of water on the drowning man. In question K, in an apparent indifference to sound financial management, would even apply to the comptroller. And there is simply no legitimate reason to place term limits on a city's fiscal watchdog. You want that person there not only year after year, but term after term. And that
Right.
we've really had long-term controllers is one of the reasons that Baltimore continues to have such high bond rating. We've had generally stability in the office of controller, stability in our financial management, and therefore not the scandals and the problems that many other places have. So that to tell to me that this is not really intended to be of help to Baltimore. Now, I've raised the question repeatedly that the second one which you've raised. Please tell me why this is worth $525,000
Right.
far spent by one individual, the president of Sinclair Broadcasting. This is not a person with a demonstrated long-term interest in the city. He does live in Baltimore County, but that is the
there's something wrong with that. There's something wrong with that, Larry. That man ain't gonna get up off of no $500,000 on one thing. Come on now. There's more to that story. And we already know that we got some racism stuff going on. So what does he have in the wings waiting with this kind of stuff laid out?
Well, the Fox 45, his local station, has been a mystery to me for some time. I mean, this station has, for several years now, engaged in a relentless negative campaign, casting Baltimore in the worst possible light.
Right.
It sometimes gets to be almost humorous, because if there's a day where there is not enough bad news, they will just recite
Make it up.
bad news
Or make
from
it
the
up.
previous year. No, they will not make it up. They will actually rerun stories from earlier days. That's the exact same film, occasionally adding to it a so-called expert or poll. And so why is the station engaged in this relentless negative campaigning? And is there some connection between that and this effort now to destabilize a Baltimore government, which is exactly what Question K is? It's an effort, it appears to be, to destabilize our city government. And I point out the inclusion of the controller as sort of exhibit number one, but I don't know what the game plan here is. All I do know is that we can defeat this effort. Baltimoreans can vote against Question K. And by the way, the words on the ballot are not yes and no. The word on the ballot is for or against. So, and it's the last question on the ballot. And the option of voting against is the last item on the ballot. So you can find Question K, go all the way down to the bottom of the ballot and vote against this, because this would be bad for Baltimore.
And what you're saying here for all of the viewers, and I guess all the listeners, they need to go to the bottom and oppose this question.
The word on the ballot is against.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's the word, the terminology that they're using on the ballot.
Yes. For
okay.
Constitutional amendments and for charter amendments, the words are for or against. And so that's the actual wording on the ballot. And that's what you vote for, is against Question K.
So here's a question for you. The election is the top of November, right?
Right.
When can you do the mail-ins for that?
Right now. People can mail in right now, and beginning Thursday, they can go and do the early voting in place. If they have a mail-in ballot, it can be either mailed in and or put in one of the several drop boxes that are around the city. So the election is happening right now.
Well, we need to also have some sort of little ad running somewhere, be it on social media or something that uses this terminology so people can hear about it on the Facebook, on, everybody's looking they're always looking at their phones. So we need to give them something that they can look at and get understanding with how to deal with this and to pass it on to all of their family members and friends and relatives.
Well,
this is frightening.
I've been doing what I can, and I don't have any personal stake in this. I'm 80 years old, so
I understand.
By the time this would have its impact, I probably won't be around.
Yes, you will. You're going to be here.
This is against the interests of the city that I love. And I fear that it is intended to be against the interests of Baltimore. And it's dealing with, now when people explain, say, well, don't we need this? Otherwise we'll have the same people entrenched. This is not reality in Baltimore. Our problem is too much turnover. Just think right now. We have, as I said earlier, a 14-member city council. Half of them, 7 of them, are in their first term. They're in just the second year of their very first term.
So they're still learning what's on first and who's on second.
Then we have 5 other council members who are in the beginning of their second term. They've been there just under 5 years. There are only 2 city council members who've been there for 2 full terms. Let's look at the issue of mayor. I pointed out that in the last decade, we've had 4 mayors, but let's look at the history of Baltimore mayors. Baltimoreans are tough voters. They know how to and have no hesitancy about removing incumbents. As I said earlier, I'm 80 years old. I was born in the middle of the Second World War. Since that time, in my lifetime, we have had only 3 mayors who've been in office longer than 2 terms.
Hmm.
Tommy D'Alessandro, the elder, who served 4 terms, William Donald Schaefer, who served 4 terms, and Kurt Smoke, who served 3 terms. And I think just about everyone will agree that those have been our 3 most effective mayors. Let me tell you what happens when you have 2-term situations, because this was a fad of the 90s, by the way. And there are many places that are realizing that it was a mistake. You even have on the Anne Arundel County ballot this year a question, I think it's question P, to sort of change, to pull back on their term limit situation. What experience has shown is that term limits produce a situation where the person is there for 1 term learning the job, and the second term, if it's term limited, they're lame ducks, which means that it empowers the bureaucracy, but also empowers more of the special interests who are going to be there. Their interests are long terms, and so if it's a lame duck second term, that people they just wait people out, and so then it has a negative impact even on the incumbents, because it forces that person in the second term to be mainly focused on what are they going to do after this, because can't serve again. And there are many projects that are important in the city that take a few years to unfold. We've had some very successful projects that took a while to get done, and that's why our 3 most effective mayors since the Second World War had served more than 2 terms.
But see, so what you're basically saying is that as things are going along, you've got contracts that need to be dealt with. You've got schools that are being built, or whatever you're building. You have major projects that are coming into the city or need to be dealt with, and laws that are being changed. And it doesn't seem like it would be that our government would be stable if people haven't had the time to even, first of all, understand their job. You got to understand your job. You can't just walk in there unless you've been someplace else doing that job. There is a time frame for people to get to understand what the job is all about. We think we know, but you don't know until you get there. All of the a variety of issues that you have to confront,
especially under the provisions of question K, where the entire government would go out of office, not just the mayor, but the entire city council, the president of the city council, and the controller.
So where's the institutional memory? Where's their institutional memory? You don't have. I mean, like, what do you do with that? That you can't get that in. A lot of that stuff you can't read out of a book. There's no direction that tells you that. You can't just say, okay, you've been here for 4 years. It's time for you to go. 3 years. It's time for you to go. And the new person comes in, but the person's gone. And then they're sitting there looking. They think they know. The ego's got them. But what does that really mean when they have to sit in a seat?
Well, it does therefore lead to that question which you asked earlier. What is Fox 45 and Sinclair? What are they up to? Why is this worth $385,000 to the chair of Fox? I mean, what is the game plan? I don't know what it is, but I do know that this is against Baltimore's interests. And at least I'm hearing more and more people are speaking up and going to say so. And then then when you challenge them, they will speak of a reality does not exist. They'll say, well, this is needed. Otherwise, we're just going to have entrenched people there forever. And then when you point out that that's not been Baltimore's history,
right?
And Baltimoreans are sophisticated voters, that we know how to get rid of people that we don't like. You know,
that's true.
Ask our well, I want to
ask anybody. You know,
we've had some people booted lately. We are sophisticated and tough voters here in this city. So it's not needed, and it would be damaging and would be destabilizing and would be harmful to Baltimoreans. And so hopefully Baltimoreans will vote against question K.
Okay, so I have a real question. If they've raised $400,000 or whatever the number is, first of all, how did it get to the news that they've raised that money? And what did they say that the money was being raised for?
But that's the point. They didn't raise the money.
That's right.
This money was provided by one person, a wealthy man who lives in Baltimore County, who heads this Sinclair Broadcasting, which owns over 180 mostly conservative television stations all over the nation. So they didn't raise the money from anybody. One person decided that he would first fund the signature collection process to get it on the ballot. Here he was ripped off. Can you imagine? I mean, that took $265,000 to collect 10,000 signatures. I knew some of the guys, and they said, Larry, this is good money. I mean, they collected the names mostly at farmers markets. And how in the world did they spend $200,000 collected only that number of signatures? But be that as it may, I guess if you've got unlimited money, you could do that. But they did not raise anything. This is a person who decided that he was wealthy enough that he would pay to have this done. And I think there was an expectation that the citizenry was so focused on other matters, the remnants of the pandemic, inflation, and politically on the national elections, that folks would not pay attention to this. Keep in mind that these ballot questions usually pass because they're often about non-controversial matters. But fortunately, we didn't notice just how damaging this would be to Baltimoreans, and Baltimoreans are fighting back. I was standing on a corner this morning up around Druid Hill Park, and judging by the honks on the corner on the automobiles, this message is getting it through to Baltimoreans that this is not intended to benefit the city and would be harmful.
So is he putting any of this money behind a candidate?
Well, that not at this time, but there's an interesting question that you asked. It seemed that if you really want to be conspiratorial minded, I don't know, this could be a part of a three-phase effort. First, if you connect all of this together, there's been this consistent, relentless, negative news stories about Baltimore, often packaged into something called City in Crisis. And I point out that that when there's not enough bad news, they'll just recycle something else. That's a part of it. Another part has been the shameless supporting of candidates for office who parrot this negativism. It happened quite recently. One of the candidates for state's attorney, Mr. Vignaraja, the Fox 45 coverage was absurd. It was actually embarrassing and so over the top that I think it actually probably backfired. It was so clear, the bias was so clear, I think that Baltimoreans were offended by it.
The same man that's up on Greenmount Avenue with some woman at 3 o'clock in the morning in his car. That's the same one gonna run for state's attorney.
But he was willing to parrot this negativism about Baltimore. And there have been others that they've supported. So we get first this negativism about Baltimore, then we get this candidacy. But the candidacy things I knew would not work. Baltimoreans are sophisticated voters, and every candidate that Fox 45 has aggressively supported, there have been others, have lost. So when we had a transition in the with the death of our friend Elijah Cummings.
Yes.
And there was a candidate there seeking that office, aggressively supported by Fox and 45 that she lost. So Baltimore voters are really sophisticated voters, so they don't fall for that. So now there seems to be an effort to, we what we can do is just get in here and monkey up the works. Let's just destabilize the city. Let's change the laws and have people compelled to leave office, even the people that voters want to have. So that's if you take a conspiratorial view of this. I don't know for sure about this. I do as to what really is the motivation, and I think that even to a very wealthy person, $525,000.
That's a lot of money, and that's shaky to me.
So what is this about? Why is this so important? Again, this is not money that was raised. This is all coming from one person. I don't know if there's any precedent for that. Certainly not locally, there isn't. For a single person to fund a attempt to change the city charter. I've never heard anything close to this, and that is disturbing. And then add to it that this is a person who controls media,
right?
And there are ethical issues that associated with that as to how that is a factor here.
I think the whole thing is unscrupulous, and it's also speaks volumes of how disrespectful this president or CEO of Fox is, that he has no respect for the citizens of this city, and that he feels that he could just throw some money at it and people will just make it happen, make it go away, or make it go his way. That is really a lot of nerve.
Well, some people who have a lot of money have a lot of nerve, but in this matter, the citizens of Baltimore get a vote. And regardless of how much of money this individual has, it's going to come down to the citizens. And that's why shows and such as what we're participating in right now, your show and others. And I must say the press actually has responded fairly well. The Afro-American newspaper has come out against Question K. The Baltimore Sun had a very nice editorial. It's been online. It hasn't yet been in the printed edition opposing Question K. And other parts of the media. The Baltimore Banner had a story about 2 days ago and focused on what you were just mentioning, the money. What is this all about? And so
you got to follow that money, honey.
I must say the Baltimore media, the Baltimore Brew, Maryland Matters, the Banner. So the local press that often don't agree on things seem to agree that this is not right, that there's something afoot here, and that it ought to be opposed. I frankly can't recall when I've seen the this almost uniformity, except for Fox, within the media, that this is just inappropriate and must be opposed.
It's outrageous. And just so you know, in my weekly newsletter, I put gave respect to the Afro. I put the Afro's article that you wrote in there, that you put into the Afro. I put it in our newsletter. So also went out to our readership as well.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well, thank you. And thank you for being a champion of this and making certain that, you tickle me, because this is an emergency. This
Yes,
is really urgent, and we can't take this lightly. We can't be comfortable with allowing people like this to try to control. And see, now I go back to the whole racist thing. You got a black population, and you got this white boy up here with $500,000 throwing his money around saying, I'm going to be in control of this city. And that's basically what he has said that he wants to do, just by virtue of how his behavior and what they do with their public, with all of their media outlets. Now, you may not be able to say that, but I can say that. And I think that it's wrong. And at some point, the citizens of this city must be aware that this is going on and be very diligent in making certain that you go and you vote, make certain that you go and you check the right boxes, that you are against K on that ballot. And tell everybody, what is it Larry Young says? Lottie Dottie and everybody. That's what.
Lottie Dottie and everybody. Yes,
right.
Please do. And I'll even get it another reason. This thing could cost Baltimoreans money.
How so?
Because of the inclusion of the controller in this. This city has benefited from stability in its controller's office, and it enjoys an exceptionally high bond rating for a city with these demographics. And part of it has been we've had long-term good controllers. Incidentally, we've also had that at the state. I mean, I think Francho was a good controller and probably should have stayed there. But this question K would have term limits applied to the controller, which makes no sense. It's never, I don't know of any precedent for putting term limits on the fiscal watchdog. I mean, that's dangerous. And as I said, could ultimately cost us money and increase the city's interest payments on our bonds and on our borrowing.
Well, I wonder also, has he set a precedent? Are people putting $500,000 into elections across this country?
Well, elections for candidates, yes, but I've never heard of $500,000 into an effort to change the charter, the local charter of a city.
Right.
And certainly not $500,000 coming from one person. I don't know if I've ever seen it collectively. So no, I'm not aware of anything like this ever having occurred before. And it is not a good precedent, and it must be turned back.
Mm-hmm. It really needs to be turned back. And if anybody out here listening to the sound of our voices, please make certain that you get out to vote. Please make certain that you get the article and read it so that you understand what this K is on the ballot. Make certain that you get out, you tell all of your people, make certain that you are against this number K. What is it? Number K? What is it?
Question K.
Question K.
Question K. The questions are labeled alphabetical order.
Okay.
The last one. And so it's vote against question K. It's called question K.
All right. So we are all against question K. Make sure you tell everybody. Larry Gibson, thank you so much for bringing this to our attention.
Pleasure. Thank you.
And you always have a seat here. And sometime if you want to just sit and run the thing, you can do that too.
Okay.
All right.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. This has been a full show, but you know what? I'm really concerned about this question K, and I'm so grateful that you're here, Larry. And we will be back next week. We might just keep doing this as a series until this election is over. All right. Take care, everybody. Thank you all for joining us. I hope you enjoyed the show. It's been a lot of fun. So we'll talk to you soon, and we'll see you next week. Take care.